Thank you for joining A Shark's Perspective, the podcast with subject matter experts in marketing. Are you connecting with people, like truly connecting your brand to people on social media? And I mean emotionally, as opposed to just using typical social content. What's your strategy for a channel that has nearly 1/3 of the world's population as its user base? While you can connect to a third of the world, does your storytelling truly connect with even just one person? Gladys Rosa Mendoza is an innovation strategist and design researcher at Facebook, and she's a subject matter expert at social media and visual storytelling. And on this episode, we'll discuss how to help marketers emotionally connect with their storytelling, how to develop a visual storytelling strategy, and a great reminder on the empathy needed across cultures. So let's tune in to a social media expert with a social shark on this episode of A Shark's Perspective. Gladys, thank you so much for joining us on A Shark's Perspective today. Please tell us a little bit about your background and your career thus far.
Sure. So I used to work at a publishing company called Scott Forsman, which is the company that started See Jane Run, See Dick Run. And when I was there, I was working, and there was one older gentleman who was ended up being my mentor, and he just kept telling me, you're too good to be working in here. You're too good to be working in here. And I was like, okay, what really does that mean? And he's like, I see a
Pay cut.
spark in you. I see, yeah. And he said, let me see what I can do. And I was like, okay, whatever. And what he started to do was actually start to give me bigger projects that then he helped me start my own company. And he just kept feeding me one project after the other. And after that, when I started working for Scott Forsman and other publishers around the country started to see what I could do, they started calling too. So, fast forward to 20 years later, I create a whole social studies line that was much more visual than what normal students get. So how do you make timelines in a very interesting way so that the kids get the information? How do you make, battle scenes and show how the strategy behind the battle in a very visual way? And luckily, that line of social studies books in the first 6 months alone sold almost $200 million worth of books. And I always joke around that, dadgummit, I should have asked for a percentage rather than a
No
flat
kidding.
rate. And so that was kind of the beginning of really making this big push into how visuals really can tell a stronger story than just text.
And then that brought you to Facebook.
And then one thing led to another. And then Facebook saw me, somebody from Facebook saw me at a speaking engagement and was like, we really want to bring you on over. We're very much a technology company, but we feel that we need somebody that can give us the insights into why people are the way that they are. So really bring the human aspect back to the app. And then that's why I'm here at Facebook now.
So I saw you also speak at an engagement, and I would really love for you to talk about your experience and kind of elaborate, if you will, tell the story on your entrance into Facebook as a Latina and what that's really sort of meant in the in your own marketing career.
Sure. So I am one of those Latinas who's very light skinned, for lack of a better way of saying it. So I am very white and full of freckles. So people don't always understand that I'm a Latina until all of a sudden I start talking to them in Spanish and start really bringing up the issues that Latinos have and that other ethnicities have.
Just don't say anything
And
bad
that
about Puerto Rico.
right, right, and that really helps to get the message across of how important it is to not just really see people, for face value or their color, but really see how they are in their mind, body, and soul, and in their hearts is the biggest thing.
Agreed.
And so when we are marketing to these different types of groups, that we really need to take the time to build empathy and to really understand them. And one of the things that I really like here at Facebook is I joined Facebook a little bit after the big hurricane in Puerto Rico, and I'll try not to cry. And one of the things was that I knew that my family was still alive because of Facebook. So we were
It's
able
amazing.
to communicate through Facebook, and everything happened through Facebook for those first 2 days when they didn't have phone lines, when they didn't have electricity, when they didn't have anything, when I couldn't get any calls through. They were at least able to send me pictures of what was going on and send me pictures of my father, who's almost 80 now, and let me know that at least they were all okay. And that really makes a difference where you can work at a place that really touch people in their hearts and not just in their pocketbooks.
Oh, so agree. And bring up a great story, that part of your story, because that's been one of the greatest things I've seen now that I think back on it, on just being able to see when families report themselves as safe after major events like a hurricane. I've seen that with people, fires over the last few years in California, with hurricanes, whether they were in Mississippi, Louisiana, or Florida, or anywhere like that, or Puerto Rico. I mean, it's amazing that power of being able to connect, billions of people on the planet, and just doing something as simple as saying I'm safe, even though you can't reach me. That's an amazing part of Facebook, and I'm glad to see that's how you were able to connect. But you were also, weren't you, the first Latina in, or define your role, how you came in as the first Latina?
So I am one of what they call the pathfinding researchers. So I really look at the strategy and the long term planning. And I am one of the first Latinas in that position. So it's very much, paving the way for my people and showing that we can do the job and really, bringing people along with me for the ride.
Agreed. So, other than just what we kind of elaborated on with how you reported yourself safe, but talk about social media. You work for the most well-known social media brand in the world. Talk about how you see the power of social today. How that really connects people. I mean, there are over what 2 billion people that use Facebook today. It's
Yeah,
the
I
most
mean it's
well-connected device.
mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling when you stop and think about it. But I think the biggest thing is just how do you connect one human to another human, and always keeping that in mind, that it's not just about the technology and all the cool stuff that we can
Right.
do, but really it's about touching one person's heart to another person's heart and making that all come to life. You know, it's about a grandmother seeing pictures of her grandchild from all across the other side of the world for the first time. It's about, you know, a husband sharing something with his wife, even though he's overseas at war or whatnot. It's really about making those connections and really creating a community. I saw a documentary the other day about a woman that had a disease, and she was in a very small town, and she didn't know who to go to, who to turn to, because none of her friends had it and whatnot. And she did a simple search on Facebook and found a group in the next town over, and at least then was able to talk to other people that are going through the same thing that she's going through. Then it can at least have that empathy, that can understand, and creating those connections that mean a lot to people. And I think that's the important part.
So help me understand and help others understand when you're defining your overarching goals. And I know you spoke about this when I saw you speak, but how you keep those in tandem with what your customers are looking for. Because a lot of what your speech was about was not just about the power of social and how we connect, but really how you can connect with your customers.
I think the biggest thing is that you have to understand your customers. What are their needs, their wants, their desires? And I do that through research and really doing much more ethnographic research than I think a lot more marketing people do.
Mm-hmm.
Much more qualitative research. I'm not the type of researcher that, just does a survey and then I can give you all kinds of percentages. I really want to know why. Why are people doing what they're doing? Why does it mean something to them? Why? And then through that process of digging deeper, uncover all kinds of juicy nuggets that then helps me define what that market is looking for, and then helps me target how I should target the message.
So a big part of what you spoke about that really intrigued me, and I think especially as we've seen video consume things, especially on Facebook, and just the power of graphics and some of the other brands. But how do you develop a visual storytelling strategy?
I think you really need to define what your audience is for that, visual storytelling strategy. What kinds of things are going to speak to them, and then try to figure out how to present it. I mean, if you look statistically, I think it's something like 90% of the information that we received is absorbed much easier through visuals, through graphics, that kind of thing. And we're much more visual than what we really believe that we are. So, how can you create that story in a simple way, in a very visual way, with infographics, with charts, with really expressing the core of that information that you're trying to get out in a very in a way innovative and interesting way that will speak to them and that will make them remember. I mean, I did a presentation which I shared for the Chicago Tribune almost 8 years ago, and to this day, I still every once in a while, at least once a year, twice a year, I get somebody saying, "Hey, I remember you gave that presentation at the Chicago Tribune. Can you help me try to put together my story? Can you help me with this presentation?" And it was over 8 years ago, and people still remember. So, how can you bring to life what it is, the point that you're trying to make across, in a very visual way that's not just a bunch of text on a PowerPoint, but something that'll touch people in such a way that, I think it's a wonderful thing that even after 8 years, people still remember my
No kidding.
presentation.
No kidding. Well, then sort of add to that, not just by great graphics and great visuals and great videos, but what do you sort of recommend as the emotional part of connecting, and how you can tie in and leverage that? I know the story you gave about the people in Detroit, or the what happened in Detroit, almost had me in tears watching you speak, let alone watching you cry. But talk, if you will, a little bit about, set up that context, if you will, about your Detroit story, and then what guidance you sort of give on how to emotionally help people connect that part of their storytelling.
Sure. So the project that I did in Detroit was for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and it was all about how can we keep inner city children in Detroit interested in going to school, even though Detroit is basically war torn, right? So when we went to Detroit, you'd see maybe every third house, was completely demolished or partially demolished or just falling apart in every sense of the word. You'd hear while we were there stories about one child getting shot and another one getting killed.
Yeah.
And how do you then keep that parent engaged in wanting to send her kid, 2 blocks over to a school when just last week, little Bobby from her friend across the street just got shot on his way to school. So how do you keep those children engaged? How do you keep them wanting to be educated when really, literally, in every sense of their word, their life is in their hands, just
Mm-hmm.
by going to school? How do you talk to a mother to keep her engaged and wanting to send her children when she's got 4 children and already her oldest has been shot, on just the simpleness of going to school? So, what do you do to touch those people to keep them engaged? It's very hard, and it's very hard as a researcher when you're hearing all these stories and you want to cry yourself. You want to show that empathy that you have for that person and really show them that you're interested in trying to solve this problem. But sometimes the problem is so big you don't even know where to start.
Yeah, it's a tough setup too when you get on stage and you're starting to tear up telling that story,
Yes.
and then it's an emotional story, and the rest of us, I looked around, there were a lot of eyes that were tearing up quickly after watching that. So I think you made an emotional connection. I can understand why one you did 8 years ago resonates, just based on the one I saw you present. Just out of curiosity, what are the brands that are that you see, just some good examples that are doing really good jobs of telling these stories, really doing good visual stories, or any that really sort of stand out to you that, just you as a Facebook user enjoy? I'm not asking for as an employee perspective, but just
Yeah.
things you see that you go, oh, that really connects with me.
Like Nike really giving you that vision that you too can participate and you too can also be, at the level of a high level athlete,
Mm-hmm.
even though you're not, but somehow that by getting their shoes or getting their clothing, it kind of gives you that positivity that you too can do it
Mm-hmm.
and really make it. Yeah. So any brand that can make you feel better about yourself and that can make you want to strive to get higher to a higher level, I think is a good thing.
Yeah, another one of my favorites is St. Jude Children's Hospital. Always does an amazing story, from a cause standpoint. They know how to tell visually compelling stories that really pull you in and make you want to donate to them. Just
Right.
because they really, I think, have some great causes behind that. So,
Right. I mean, the other one that I'm thinking of, and it might be a little bit superficial, but I'll say it anyway, is OPI, right? Which is the nail polish company. Which, whenever I'm going
yeah.
to have a presentation, I make sure to go get my nails done and get my favorite color of red, right? And when I'm pointing at stuff on posters, it always makes an impression. And even people walking down the hall, it's like, oh, I love your nails. And it just makes you feel good about yourself and makes you feel beautiful and makes you feel pretty. And when you have all that positivity in your, in your body, in your head, of course you're going to present much better than you ever would have if you didn't do that. And it's just a simple thing of just going to go get your nails done, get that beautiful red color, and bing, you're a different person.
I have no response to that at all, Gladys. I've never had my nails done in red. You need a jagged saw to get through my mani, let alone a mani pedi. But so so Facebook, for a lot of reasons, is beginning to do a really amazing job of rebranding, if you will, by telling some amazing stories of their own and how they've really started really helping push people to think about how they connect, getting back to their roots, if you will, the roots of how the brand was founded. What do you agree with that? And one, how do you see them go about doing that?
I do agree with that. And I think the important part is that everybody has a story. Some have small stories, some have medium sized stories, some have very large stories. And it's just when you discover what somebody's story is that then you can truly connect to them as a human, as a person, as a being on this earth, and really make a true connection. And I think it's very important by us understanding what each other's story is that then we can come together.
Agreed. So, what advice do you give marketers in general on how to do a better job really connecting with their customers, having better social content? What's your one piece of advice on how to really, you know, get marketers to step up their game and do a better job with social, especially on Facebook and Instagram?
Yeah, I think it is about connecting those stories and really creating what is the story of your brand and how it relates to other people, or how it can relate, or how you want it to relate. And really making those connections of how your brand is going to improve their life, is going to make it better. It's going to, what is the true purpose of your brand and your products as it relates to people? And really think of people as a being in and of themselves, and not just think of people as somebody to buy your product and generate some profit.
Completely agree.
One thing that I'd like to think about
Yeah.
is my father was in the military, and so we moved around every 2 to 3 years, and I was constantly having to assess people, make new friends, and do this all very quickly. And when I was growing up, I always, saw Leave It to Beaver and all those kinds of shows and thought, wow, it would be really nice to just live in one place from kindergarten to the time that I graduated high school. And now I think back that actually having my father be in the military was actually a blessing, because as a researcher now, I am able to assess a situation very quickly, make friends with my participants, with my research folks very quickly, and you'd be amazed at the things that people will tell me just because I am able to build that confidence in a very quick and short period of time. And ultimately, it helps my clients, it helps the people that I work with, it helps the project move so much better and so much faster. And I think that that is something that people need to think about. How can you make better the situation that you're in now? And you never know how it's going to come up in the future, that you're going to actually then in the future see it as a benefit and not as something bad.
So does that mean you're going to accept my friend request?
Of course, I'm going to accept your friend request.
Okay. Gladys, I had the pleasure of hearing you speak at one of the larger marketing conferences, and I was really enthused to have you on here and, have somebody from Facebook and see Facebook and publishers make this big push and telling their story more. I'm curious as to what you get out of speaking at events like that on your own.
I think if I can somehow at least connect to one person in the audience,
yeah, well, you did that.
For me is a win. Yeah,
you did that with quite a few people.
Yeah, if I can at least get them to think differently, see things from a different perspective, and get excited about what I'm presenting and what I'm showing, for me, that's a win.
Well, Gladys, we've come to that special time in the show. Are you ready for the 5 most important questions that you're going to be asked today? All right, here we go. The beaches of California, where you are now, or the beaches of Puerto Rico?
I would pick the beaches of Puerto Rico.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
Facebook or Instagram?
Facebook.
51st state or U.S. territory?
Oh, that's a hard one. I'm going to say I'm neutral on that one.
There you go. Politically correct from a Puerto Riqueña.
That's right.
Likes or shares?
I'm going to say shares.
And the most important question that you're going to be asked today, Gladys, is biscuits or cornbread?
Cornbread.
Nice. So, Gladys, where can people find out more about you, follow your thoughts and posts? And if you say Twitter or anywhere instead of Facebook, except maybe LinkedIn, then it might become a situation.
Yeah, I would say LinkedIn.
Safe. Good. Gladys, muchas gracias for joining us today on A Shark's Perspective.
Okay, gracias. Y para arriba mi tiburón.
Está bien. So there was my conversation with Gladys Rosa Mendoza, an innovation strategist and design researcher at Facebook, and she's a subject matter expert at social media and visual storytelling. Let's take a look at 3 key takeaways from our conversation with her. First, social channels like Facebook do an amazing job of allowing people and brands to tell their story. As she said, everybody has a story, whether you have a small story, a medium one, or a big one, but we all have stories. And when you discover what someone's story is, you can make a true connection with them. By us understanding what each other's story is, then we can come together, as she said. Unfortunately, though, a lot of marketers get lost and don't create effectively the story of their brand and how it relates to other people. Remember that those connections you're making should show how your audience's lives will be improved and made better by your product or service. These are real people with real problems. They're never mindless drones just looking to purchase your product or service. So connect with them. Second, Facebook has had an interesting few years of recent, but they seem to be making a concerted effort at getting back to their core. For marketers, what better way to connect one human to another? It's when we forget that direct line that it becomes a problem. As she said for Facebook, it's not just about the technology and all the cool stuff that we can do, but really it's about touching one person's heart to another person's heart and making that all come to life. When you think about your brand within a social landscape, make sure that you aim to connect by making a community. That tribe of connections means a lot to people. Third, she spoke about her own experience as a Latina and the lens it gave her when she said how important it is to not just really see people for face value or their color, but really see how they are in their mind, body, and soul, and in their hearts is the biggest thing. So when we are marketing to these different groups, we really need to take the time to build empathy and to really understand them. Gladys, I couldn't agree more. Got a question? Send me an email to kenneth@asharksperspective.com. It's been my honor to connect with you in order to discuss another one of the many components that makes up marketing today. So like this podcast, share it, please give it a good review, and then join us on the next episode of A Shark's Perspective.